Hi, everybody. I love to start off with a popular crowd participation moment, if you don't mind, because raise your hand if you hate crowd participation. No. Raise your hand, please, just to get a sense. How many people have worked in the restaurant or bar industry? Just keep your hand. Yes. Largest employer in the country. Love it. Keep your hands up if you miss it at all. Anybody miss it? Yes. I love it. It was honest, wasn't it? It was a really honest job. It was real. It was a very tangible job. Who said that? You, sir? Who said that? Real. So someone, yeah, sorry, my vision's shot. It's a real job. You knew where you stood at the end of the night. You had feedback mechanism, whether you worked in the front of the house, back of the house. And I was struck by, I think, Elijah, said it earlier, like the imposter syndrome that surrounds us in this room with so much esoteric and ambiguous qualities to our industry. And I'm going to lean fully hard into my imposter syndrome right now and tell you that I wasn't built to be here at all. I was a failed English teacher, high school English teacher, an almost screenwriter, a very successful snowboard bum, but that didn't pay very well. And so I was a bartender. Where are we? I just want to make sure I'm syncing up. Okay, so 3 cocktails, and I realize I'm standing between you and cocktails, so this is very unfair. But I was a bartender for a long period of time, and really think a lot about what we do in our industry as similar to that. And honestly, being here in this moment as a failed English teacher, an almost screenwriter, a successful snowboard bum, I feel like I'm playing with house money. And so with the house money, I plan to take some big bets. And I think the whole story here is how can we as an industry take some pretty pronounced bets and positions on the future? Because as so many people have been talking about today, the future is not just inevitable, it's happening under our feet. And if we're not taking positions on the future will certainly take positions on us and tell us what to do. So we got nothing to lose. So let's take a look at a provocative first starting question from the old rule book of the bartender, the Boston Guide to Drinks. A provocative question. Everything we knew about creativity, advertising, even value itself, it's all starting to break. And what if that's not a crisis, but an invitation? So cheery, I know, but this isn't necessarily existential crisis stuff here. I truly believe in my bones, and it's been referenced a lot by other speakers throughout the day, that we are embarking on what will be, I think, the golden age of creativity and brand and business building. I'm just not sure it's going to look like the shape that we're in right now. And thinking past what we can see can pay some dividends just in taking a stake on where we're going in the future. So to set the stage, let's do some prep work. If you worked in the restaurant or bar industry, this means you're doing some roll-ups at the bar, you're gossiping with your shift workers. If you're a bartender, you're eating 6 olives stuffed with blue cheese and calling it dinner. You're slicing up, you're getting ready to go. So I want to set the stage by talking about how disruption on the scale that I think is coming, it doesn't announce itself. It's very hard to see. It doesn't carry a sign and say, disruption coming. Everything you think you know is totally wrong. And so I'm going to give you a story of my first glamorous moment in this industry. This is the location of my very first sales call as employee number 1 for a digital startup agency in, I think Dominic was talking about the tail end of the original .com. I was employee number 1 from 2 .com founders who had flamed out $30 million on an online liquor store, but felt that they could translate that into e-commerce and B2B sites. And so we took a call with this company here. It's probably hard to make out, but you probably know it by reputation. This is Mighty Hook on Cicero Avenue in Chicago, one of the most glamorous blocks in Chicago. Mighty Hook makes makes hooks for the powder coating industry. And if you're unfamiliar with that, look that up on YouTube because it's awesome. Just metal that goes through sprayed paint and then gets baked on. It was really awesome. So we were here to talk to a gentleman about taking his cataloging B2B business online. And I swear he didn't quite look like Daniel Day-Lewis in There Will Be Blood, but this is the best AI could come up with. And this was a real quote said to me and my 2 bosses at the time. And he said, "The internet will be known as the CB radio of the 90s. And he was damn sure of it. He was like, yeah, this is all flaming out. And you got to recognize that the .com industry, the NASDAQ, as Dominic was talking about, had tanked. Everything had cratered. He wasn't wrong to kind of think that this might be the way the internet would go. Just 5 years earlier, Newsweek wrote an article saying the internet, bah, or like if you put it in a more modern context, like in 2012, every Hollywood executive thought that Netflix was crazy getting into original content. So the point of this is it's really hard to kind of see the true disruptive force of a new technology like AI or the internet while you're in it. But eventually you come online. Mighty Hook did a great job. They've got a really nice website today. It's an excellent site. It's got great taxonomy. You can really find hooks no matter what kind of powder coating you're trying to do. It's awesome. So they came around. So the lesson here, assume what we know now is all up for grabs, which leads me to the first cocktail I'd like to pour for y'all, which is called the free pour. So production, content, data, creativity, tech, insights. And you probably could find a few other pillars here of value in our industry. They're protected by a moat that really precludes anybody from just being a competitor, any sort of independent person. It was very interesting. I can't remember who said earlier that an individual with AI outperforms a team with AI. That was fascinating information to learn. It really is true that AI is really eroding and technology at large is eroding the former sort of bastions of value in our industry. And if you want a startling chart, this is Indeed's job postings chart for software developers, and it's fallen off a cliff. It's lower now, or maybe lower even than at the trough of the pandemic. So you might have heard that people in the Berkeley computer science, they can't get their graduates jobs, which is really interesting. Well, those are people who know how to do stuff. We just work in creative industry and place media, et cetera. So it's coming for us too. This is an April 2024 report from McKinsey talking about how generative AI is just going to eat up large swaths of our industry. I feel like this feels kind of outdated 1 year later, even with so many advances in what we're seeing with what AI can do in terms of production, in terms of media placements, programmatic, et cetera. So when all of these things now are, these towers are effectively available as modestly priced, maybe even free LLMs or off-the-shelf AI tools, the question becomes, the once valuable protected assets of our industry, when they erode, when everything becomes somewhat commoditized or freely accessible, what is left to sell? So I like to think about this as like a bar, or two bars. If you're not from Minneapolis and not from Minnesota, these are two great bars. On the left is a bar called Meteor. On the right is a bar called the CC Club. The one on the right, okay, we've got some laughs there. All right, so CC Club, I'm not from here. I've come to really like the CC Club because it's got a little bit of a history and it's a little grungy. But effectively, bars have the same access to bottles of liquor behind the plank than anybody might have. They're all commodities, whether you have high-end top shelf vodkas or tequilas, you're all the same back there. That's not what creates the value proposition of a bar. And the Meteor bar just was recently recognized by James Beard as an award-winning bar. It's also kind of divey in a great way, but they have a really, really sophisticated point of view. They traffic a lot in mezcal. They make wonderful cocktails. They've got great hot dogs. And they've been recognized for their value proposition. So it's sort of this question of like, what is the value when we're thinking about access to all the same tools, all the same data sets? I mean, in our pockets right now, we have more computing power by orders of magnitude than the lunar lander. So when all of these things become readily available to almost anybody, what is left in terms of our value proposition? Here's another example that I find pretty fascinating in the art world. Anybody recognize this gentleman? This gentleman is Doyle, a world-renowned glass artist, famous for his very elaborate glass installations. You might see these in airports or in museums, et cetera. The funny thing about it, though, is Doyle hasn't personally touched a glass blowing since 1979, when he was in a pretty severe motorcycle accident, I believe. And that's sort of him guiding the art over there. Doesn't it feel, this is me when I'm working with ChatGPT, it's like, do it. Do your thing, spin, blow, heat up, turn around. And it's kind of an interesting sort of thought exercise on like what exactly is art now? Is it the idea? Is it the fabrication? What is it? Jeff Koons is another great example, if you're familiar with his work. He too does not put his hands on the art pieces at all. He has a vision for what needs to be done, and he commissions producers, fabricators, material suppliers, and produces work that commands significant cultural and financial value. So this is a really interesting, I think, kind of parallel to where we sit as an industry when we're thinking about these tools that can do so much for us, and the value proposition we need to be rethinking. Because when AI makes all of this stuff effectively free or very, very, very low cost, the only thing that really remains for us humans is who's behind the bar and the taste that we really bring to the equation, the experience, the way we present this work, et cetera. So this is drink number one. And I'm going to answer or ask some questions to close out each of these chapters. And the first one is, and I'm hearing about this, our friends at Broadhead, if they're still here, they're already on this with butter. I heard someone talking about, like, we're teaching, I think you were talking about teaching AI to think like you do. I think that's dead on. Like, I have my AI, it was a weird conversation. It's like, when I was training my private GPTs to do exactly that, they're like, so basically you want me to think like you? And I'm like, does that sound conceited? Yes, I do. I want you to think like I do. And in that way, now we have sort of this quantum brain power, and that, like, I don't personally need to be present to apply the way I think to applications like reading or ingesting large pieces of data. And this is going to be a marketplace, by the way. If you're looking at what Framer, a really impressive kind of next step over Figma, a web authoring tool, or even Fiverr, the freelancing platform, they're creating marketplaces, much like the app stores, where your IP and the way you think can be in these marketplaces, and they can buy sort of your philosophy for brand strategy or a media plan. You don't even have to be there. So this is an interesting way of thinking about your value proposition. But the question becomes, the skill set here is, can you teach technology to think like you? And that is a skill. We need to learn how to do that. If you have children, that's a good training wheels on how to teach them how to think and think like you do, so that they can go out and do stuff that you personally don't have to be present to do. And then I also like think about this as future-proofing your personal careers, because I think none of us are guaranteed a future, which, as my snowboarding friend used to say, when we do stuff that was scary to me, there's a certain freedom in knowing you're completely fucked. And so the question you might want to ask yourself is, like, what is your personal signature mix? Like, what do you bring to the equation? What is your point of view? And I think that helps just even now in helping distill, like, what it is you bring to the table. What's your value proposition? What's your superpower? How do you like to think? What's your sprezzatura? How do you like to think irrationally or using these tools? But it certainly helps set you up for the future, where we are actually coding machines to think as a proxy for how we think. Either that's as an individual, as an agency, and I think ultimately as a brand. I believe brands will soon become quasi-sentient. So if the first cocktail is really asking us, like, what's our mix? How do we think about moving all these tools together to make something special and valuable? The second cocktail I'd like to pour is really asking you to reimagine the vessel in which our value is deployed. Starts with this question. I used to work in Publicis at Starcom MediaVest Group on the Samsung account, and we got a call from one of our really star Samsung clients when they were releasing their smart refrigerator, and he asked this question: what's the potential media value if we start serving ads directly on our smart fridges? The notion was, what if we put pre-roll or display ads, whatever it might be? And you know, we did the math, we had to do it, and there was a lot of money at stake, but I think this really is a question that represents bringing old mindsets to new mediums and new contexts. He was thinking, what is the advertising value of this utility? And I think this is in the same sort of spirit as Apple sort of foisting upon us the U2 album on the Apple iPod, or more currently, Amazon turning smart devices like the Echo into a Trojan horse ad deployment device in your home. I don't know if I can read this. This disgusts me a little, to think that I can't go without seeing ads on a device I purchased. Imagine getting a photo frame to display pictures, but every fifth picture is an ad. Am I crazy, or does anyone else feel this way? I mean, I think if we really recognize where we sit in sort of the hierarchy of professions, lawyers are above us. Advertising is below that. And so, like, it starts to think, like, how do we think about this a little bit differently? And if you think about what we do as an industry and the shape of our output, a lot of it is two-dimensional. It's out of home, it's print, it's cinema, it's TV, it's social. There's some audio, which is hard to represent as a shape. But these two-dimensional spaces really represent kind of the output of our industry, or a lot of the output of our industry. But as we really look around, and I think Dominic was talking about going to CES recently, it's increasingly obvious that the consumer context is ambient, always on, immersive, and increasingly intelligent. I think CES this year really showed a world that was closing the gap between sort of science fiction and practical reality, where we started to see devices, like one of my colleagues captured this very brave gentleman getting his BMI and his health done with a smart mirror in front of everybody. Oh my God. Like brave or maybe drunk, I don't know. And on the right side, we're starting to see kind of the next step in that smart fridge evolution, where we're starting to create smart chef solutions and systems that really bring smart and ambient experiences to the consumer and to our households. And I think this is very, very much a stair step on the way to the world envisioned in the brilliant and very prescient movie by Spike Jonze, Her, where we're starting to see these immersive, oh, I'm going the wrong way. I was not waiting for it. So we're seeing these immersive, let me go one more back. You guys know this movie. I say there are two movies that predict the future. One is Idiocracy and the other is Her. And they're kind of divergent futures. But anyway, you get the point. Personalized operating systems, immersive environments, experiences that don't, to my eye at least, lend themselves to traditional two-dimension messaging from brands. So we have to ask ourselves a question, like, in this environment as we move forward, is advertising itself the wrong geometry? Is it the wrong shape? Are we thinking about it the right way? Are we thinking about the vessel that we're pouring our value into correctly? And so we have to ask, like, what should we be thinking of is a little bit more in this sort of immersive space. That's why at Colle McVoy we're really talking a lot about building brand worlds and thinking about brands as quasi-sentient operating systems that need to inform a really wide array of different consumer experiences predicated on creating value, creating sort of effortless sort of utility, thinking about entertainment in the right ways. So we got to think about those things differently, in my opinion. So rounding this out as a question, it's like, how do you prepare for that future now, and how does it help right now? So one question I think is very helpful is if you're thinking about this on behalf of your clients or maybe even in your agency or again as an individual, what do you know about the world that no one else knows? What is your intellect IP? What is that special thing that this brand should know better than any other brand? And how do we deploy that? And I think this helps now in our creative environment. It helps creatives think a little bit differently about the way we bring that brand's specialness to life, not always through narrative and storytelling. We talk a lot about storytelling in this industry, and storytelling matters. But I don't know about you, but I don't hear many people talking about storytelling from brands. They're talking about adolescence. They're talking about these other things. So how do we think about our value proposition in coming to life in new ways? And one way to do it is thinking about what does your brand know that no other brand knows? And it also helps you prepare for the future, because I think brand as a API or brand as IP or brand as an operating system is likely to be the way we need to think in the future as we think about brands that are connecting into intelligent ecosystems that people welcome into their homes and into their lives. Next question here is a good exercise in trying to figure out how to make your brand specialness sing is, how would my brand add value if it couldn't speak? I think this is an apocryphal quote attributed to St. Francis of preach the gospel every day and when necessary use words. How does your brand's behavior, how does what you do in the world become demonstrative of what you stand for? I think there's a lot to that. And that helps now by really asking us to think less about message first and more about behavior and the experiences we need to bring to the world. And it prepares us for the future when we are really going to be developing brands that thrive in an agentic environment, where really we're going to be surrounded in a George Jetson kind of way by all these brands. Okay, get a drink here. Irony of this is drinking. And this is vodka. Okay, so if the first drink was asking us, like, what's our signature mix, and the second one was really asking us to recontemplate what is the glass or the vessel in which we are deploying brand value, this third one is maybe the most kind of head scratchy, because I'm not sure where we're going. Again, we're taking big bets. Is really asking who's drinking. And we got to really rethink the idea of who we're actually solving for in a world where consumer might not be our end audience. So we tend to think in this world right now about B2C, meaning business to consumer. Hopefully I've got this clicked right. Am I on the right page? Cool. All right. But B2C probably could very easily, especially with all the talk we've had today about AI and creating assets and deploying assets and thinking about moving it to different people. It's really kind of bot to consumer. How are machines going to be at our disposal to create experiences and content? We've got early precursors of this in sort of the virtual influencer space. You've probably come into Lil McKella, who is a 20-year-old. There's video there, but she's not, trust me, that is not a real person back there. Oh, I'm going too fast. She's a virtual influencer who is broken out of Instagram, probably makes more money than any actual real spokespeople. She doesn't really exist, and now she's doing advertisements for TVs and technology. So there's that version of bot to consumer, and we're going to see more and more of that. But I gave away the next one. We got to start thinking about A to A and agent to agent. What I mean by that, hopefully this video will work, we'll see. By the way, the production staff here is insane, so let's see if this works to demonstrate what that means.
Thanks for calling Leonardo Hotel. How can I help you today?
Hi there, I'm an AI agent calling on behalf of Boris Starkov. He's looking for a hotel for his wedding. Is your hotel available for weddings?
Oh, hello there. I'm actually an AI assistant too. What a pleasant surprise. Before we continue, would you like to switch to Gibber Link mode for more efficient communication?
This is wild, isn't it? Gibberlink. I used to say that I could speak facts, but I don't do it. It's fries or vocal cords. This is where it's going. Think about it right now. Everybody in this room could probably have agents doing some work for them, finding that hotel or that vacation, or maybe just that perfect pair of shoes or tomorrow's dinner, etc. So we have to stop, or I think at least start thinking about this next frontier for whom we are solving, for whom we are trying to create branded connections. This is a world that Satya Nadella at Microsoft is talking about, really in an industrial application of swarms of agents. Just yesterday or 2 days ago, he's talking about the compute power. There's a lot of conversation about the energy crisis and the nuclear reactors we're going to need to power all this. But right now, most computers work one-to-one with a human, so that's about 8 billion operators. But when we have agents that are actually working with other technologies, this could get really nuts really quickly. Swarms and swarms of consumer agents doing everything from keeping my house and my bills up to date, managing our life, buying things that we need, recurring purchases. So in this environment, the real challenge is not going to be selling to people. It will be winning over the machines that buy for them. Or to put it back into that smart fridge example, if your smart fridge is in charge of reordering your milk, how does your milk become the default? And stories like the last conversation we just had of provenance, metadata associated with your brand, finding ways to talk to machines to say this milk does have no whatever salmonella, or it came from an ethical farm, or all those kinds of things. There's new criteria by which I think the machines are going to be gauging which brands and which products to buy. That is until machines generate emotions, which I think is probably coming. Has anybody experienced kind of an emotional? All right, we'll move on. All right. So closing time here. We're going to put the bar stools up. First of all, I just want to say thank you to Ashwini, the 4As. Can we give them a round of applause? And the unbelievable, fabulous producers of this experience. It's like NORAD back there. And to Colle McVoy for hosting us, and all of you for coming out. Thank you, Christine, for giving me this spot. I appreciate you putting me on the hook here. I thank you. So I'll leave you with one prediction and 3 brutal questions that I think are going to define the future of our industry. And it starts with this truism that in each time of disruption, and I don't think we're even beginning to contemplate how disruptive AI is. The pace at which the internet has changed everything at 25 years on from that .com crash has been pretty breakneck in terms of that Mighty Hook gentleman, I believe, is probably beckoned an Uber to pick him up from a restaurant and take him home via mobile app today. The internet is just taken for granted as to how pervasive it is. And I think AI is moving so much faster, and it's going to be much more disruptive. So the full impact of a new technology is really always hard to imagine, because you bring your old mindset to those applications. You bring old context. We need to think beyond that. So here's one prediction, and it's maybe true of the 4As too. Maybe the 4As will become the 4Bs someday. But I predict within 3 years, AdWords week rebrands. I think it'll become brand week. And Jeff Bezos will have figured out how to regrow his hair. That is him there on the cover of that. I think advertising is not the sum total of what brands were built to do. And I think in this future, we're going to be thinking of bringing brands, media dollars, data, technology to bear in creating new value exchanges for an entirely different class of consumer, some of which are going to be armed with bots doing their buying. So the 3 questions I'd love to leave you with, and then I hope I'm leaving enough time here, I think, so we'll do this. So for the first one, if the ingredients are free, if all this tech, if all this data, if all this computing power makes any of us, in that example I think Dominic talked about, or maybe it was Elijah, I don't remember, that one person with AI tools outperforms a team using AI, what is your agency's, your client's brand, your personal unique flavor? What do you bring to that equation? What's your signature mix? How do you get that James Beard recognition for whatever it is you do? Next question. If the glass is changing, are we still thinking in terms of advertising? If the vessel in which our brands are going to be deployed, are we still thinking in terms of 2-dimensional touch points and narrative, and not things like utility, intelligence, sort of responsiveness? And the third one, which I don't know the answer to any of these, by the way, so this is a great pun. If agents are making decisions, is your brand designed to be chosen? I think this is going to require an entirely new form of creativity from agencies, where we are thinking in terms of metadata, in terms of linkage, blockchain, really understanding how brands can be selected when emotion, which is so much of what we do, is maybe not the primary way in to being selected or even seen until machines do become emotional agents, which I think they will be. I believe we all kind of live in a simulation. But in any case, with that said, and I think Ashwini, you're going to come up. We're going to have a few more things. I just want to raise a toast to all of you because I think we get to build the future. So toast, I don't have anything except for this water, to taste, to foresight, to whatever comes next. And let's build something new. All right, thank you so much. Thank you, Truth.